Apple's WWDC event just ended, and wow, I've got to tell you guys, I was totally blown away by some of the things that Apple showed us. And no, it wasn't Craig Federighi running in slow-mo. We're talking things like the new M2 MacBook Air, the lack of a Mac Pro, and where the heck is the Mac Mini, as well as some awesome new features that I totally wasn't expecting. So in this video, I'm gonna talk about the leaks and predictions that I got totally wrong. I'm sorry guys, like the whole white bezels and white keyboard thing, but I did get some things right, including the M2 chip's performance. I can't believe I got it that close. Anyway, let's get right into the video. Now for the last few months, I've been giving you guys bits and pieces of my predictions on the M2 MacBook Air as well as the M2 chip. And in February, I actually worked with Renders by Shailesh to create these renders of the MacBook Air, and I'm actually very happy with how close we got. First of all, we got the whole white keyboard, white bezels wrong, unfortunately. I also thought that the keyboard well would match the bezels, but it's actually not because it's color matched. There's no MacBook Air text on the little chin area, so I got that right. But I thought it would be on the bottom, engraved just like the MacBook Pro, but it's not. There is nothing on the bottom. I'm also very happy that I got the rounded bottom design like the new MacBook Pro, so that is just exactly how I thought it would be. And I told you guys it would be much thinner, just big enough for the ports to fit, so that was correct, as well as the 4 little stands, just like the MacBook Pro. Now what I got wrong was that I thought there would be one Thunderbolt port on each side, but no, they're both on the same side, right next to the MagSafe 3 that we all expected. But what I really love is that Apple color matched the MagSafe 3 cable, and it's braided. It's just beautiful. Now, I also was telling you guys that Apple would give us better battery life with the M2 chip, even though it's gonna be significantly thinner, which is crazy because there's a 20% reduction in volume, and it's literally less than half an inch thick. I cannot believe they got it that thin. That might even be thinner than I personally expected. Now, I personally thought that there would be more color options for the MacBook Air, and I thought that Apple would take the subtle route with a very light blue, but they actually went the opposite way. They gave us a standard silver space gray, but they gave us this new champagne-ish starlight, which Mark Gurman got totally right, as well as the dark blue midnight, which is actually darker than the space gray, which is very, very interesting, and I absolutely love that color. But one of my predictions that I am very, very happy that I got correct was the actual MacBook lineup, because I was telling you guys for a while that the M1 MacBook Air would stick around for around the same price, and yes, it's still $1,000, and the M2 MacBook Air, $1,199, so $1,200, and of course, $1,300 for the M2 MacBook Pro, and then of course we have the 14 and 16 inch, but I absolutely can't believe how close I was with my performance predictions for the M2 chip. But before we jump right into that, I wanna ask you guys to click subscribe, because we're gonna be getting our hands on these new MacBook Pros and comparing them to basically all of the other MacBooks, and as you guys know, we do the most in-depth and detailed comparisons out there, so please subscribe. And by the way, to celebrate the new M2 chip, we actually worked with Basic Apple Guy on Twitter to create this new M2 chip design. So definitely check that out. And if you want to support us, be sure to pick up one of those, because we have sweatshirts, or should I say hoodies, and we have t-shirts. And be sure to use the coupon code M2CHIP with no space for 20% off on all of our merch for a limited time. Now, jumping right into the performance, I made a video back in December talking about the different scenarios for the M2 chip. Now, I had 2 scenarios. The first one is that the M2 is based on the A15 chip, and the second scenario is that it's gonna be based on the A16 chip with the new 4nm process. Now, Apple just let us know that it's based on the A15, which is 2nd generation 5nm. All right, now according to Apple, the CPU is up to 18% faster, and the GPU is up to 35% faster. So as you can see in my predictions right here in this screenshot, you can see that the M2 chip based on A15, I predicted 8738. Now, if I take out the calculator and I multiply the M1 chip performance by 1.18, which is 18%, Look at that, 8,800. I'm literally within 62 points, so I'm so happy that I got that close for the multi-core CPU performance, of course, based on the A15. Now, let's go over to the Metal graphics performance. So Apple said the M2 is 35% faster in terms of the GPU because of the 10 cores. Well, let's add 35% to the performance of the M1 chip. And as you can see, 28,579.5. Look at that. I am within around 300 points in terms of the Metal GPU performance, so I'm very happy about that, and we're definitely gonna have to test the actual performance when we get them in, so don't forget to subscribe. Now, getting back to the M2 MacBook Air, there were a couple things that really surprised me. First of all, I was not expecting it to go up to 24 gigabytes of RAM. That was a total shocker to me. Now, on top of that, I wasn't expecting Apple to give the M2 chip 100 gigabytes per second of memory bandwidth, which is 50% more than the M1, especially since they're still only using 2 RAM chips on the M2 chip, which means really good things for the M2 Pro, M2 Max, and M2 Ultra that are coming later. But one thing that really blew my mind was that they were adding the ProRes video encode and decode engines, and not only that, but 8K ProRes, as well as 8K HEVC and H.264, which I was not expecting at all. But in terms of the downsides, I can't believe we still only have Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.0, and on top of that, it still only supports one external display, which I got wrong because I didn't think Apple would do that again, but they did. So it looks like they're keeping that limitation there just so that the higher end MacBooks will be there to support more displays. And now with that said, let's pivot over to the Mac Mini because we were expecting a new redesigned M2 Mac Mini in a thinner form factor and design, and we obviously didn't get that at WWDC. Now, personally, I think there's a chance that Apple is sticking to just one redesigned product per event, because if we go all the way back to April of 2021, Apple redesigned the iMac and it was by itself. And then in the fall of 2021, we had the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros redesigned. That was just by itself. Then going up to March, we had the new Mac Studio, which is a new design by itself. And now at WWDC, we have the new MacBook Air redesigned by itself because the MacBook Pro uses the old design. So what if Apple's preparing another event in the fall, potentially in November, to show us the redesign of the M2 Mac Mini? Now, I think that would make sense because the Mac Mini is cheap right now. It's only $700, and we're expecting this new M2 Mac Mini to replace the current M1 at around the same price point. So what if Apple wants to sell these more expensive M2 MacBooks first before they release the M2 Mac Mini in the fall so that they can get as much money as possible from these laptops, and then they can show off the desktop Mac Mini later with its new redesign as well. But in terms of the Mac Pro, we are all very disappointed because I was hoping for a teaser, kind of like a one more thing for the Mac Pro, and now that we didn't get anything about it, I'm starting to worry that we might actually not get it for a while, because Ming-Chi Kuo was saying the Mac Pro, the iMac Pro, and the Mac Mini might not come until 2023, and that was a very bold prediction because everybody was expecting the Mac Pro this year, and there are so many leaks of that actually coming out. So let me share with you guys what I think happened. Well, I think it could have gotten delayed potentially because of the hardware flaw that we exclusively talked about recently on Twitter, where there's an issue where the M1 Ultra is scaling very badly because of a limitation with the TLB, or kind of like the buffer memory. So what if that led Apple to delay that version until they could get that fixed and base it off of the M2 family of chips instead of the M1? Maybe that happened, and what if we don't get it until next year? Well, there's still a chance that this fall Apple comes out and boom, they give us the Mac Pro, because technically Apple's 2-year transition for Apple Silicon began in November of 2020 when we got the M1 chip Max. So it could finish in November with a Mac Pro reveal, which I tweeted about back in January. So hopefully that happens, but there is a chance that if there were a lot of issues, Apple could just delay it, but let's hope for the best. But talking about the M2 MacBook Air, I think Apple absolutely nailed it, especially since it is incredibly thin and beautiful. So I think Apple's gonna sell a ton of these, and I don't think anybody should buy the new M2 MacBook Pro. Don't buy that. It's a waste of money with the old design. You're gonna want this MacBook Air. So with that said, hopefully you enjoyed this video, and if you did, go ahead and click the circle above to subscribe. Definitely check out one of those 2 videos right there. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.